What if I told you that the woman you're chasing might not just break your heart, but completely derail your life? Most men don't see it coming. They think the chaos is love, the control is care, and the emotional roller coaster is passion. But in truth, it's destruction, slow, quiet, and lethal to your peace, your purpose, and your power. This isn't just about heartbreak. This is about identity loss, emotional manipulation, and a future stolen in the name of romance. But here's the Stoic truth. What hurts you can also awaken you. Awareness is strength, if you dare to face it. You're standing at a dangerous crossroad. Ignore the signs and you'll suffer the consequences. But open your eyes now, and you reclaim not just your time, but your entire future. If you're ready to see clearly and walk with strength, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I protect my peace above all. Let's get into it. Number 1. Drama is her oxygen, and your peace is the threat. There are women who are not looking for peace, but for intensity, not for harmony, but for emotional explosions. You'll recognize her by how quickly she turns a calm moment into conflict, how she finds fault in harmless words, how she accuses you of things you never intended. She thrives in chaos because calmness makes her feel invisible. She doesn't feel alive unless there's something to fix, someone to blame, or somewhere to pour her emotional chaos into. And if you're not careful, that somewhere becomes you. But here's the truth. This isn't love. It's emotional addiction disguised as passion, the highs and lows, the roller coasters, the misinterpretations. They're not a test of how much you care. They're a reflection of her internal instability. When she constantly needs to provoke a reaction just to feel seen, it's not connection, it's dysfunction. And if you try to play her game, if you try to explain yourself endlessly, prove your innocence, calm her storms, you become her emotional toy, not her equal. From a Stoic point of view, your role is not to rescue her from her own storms, but to protect your own inner peace. You don't need to match her energy. You don't need to fight chaos with chaos. You only need one move: silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of sovereignty. You withdraw from the game, not because you're weak, but because you refuse to be manipulated. You walk away, not to punish, but to preserve your sanity. A Stoic man does not anchor his peace in someone else's emotional weather. He builds his foundation on things within his control, his actions, his discipline, his choices. He does not entertain drama for the sake of love because he knows that real love doesn't scream. It doesn't destroy. It doesn't demand proof. It flows, it aligns, it builds. If she thrives on conflict and pulls you into chaos to test your commitment, understand, you're not in a relationship, you're in a storm. And storms don't get calmer by negotiation. They only pass when you stop chasing the lightning and take shelter in your own inner. Comment below. I choose peace over chaos, always. Number 2, she craves attention, but not from you alone. One of the clearest signs that a woman is not grounded in her own sense of worth is when her self-esteem depends on constant external validation. She's not content with quiet admiration or private connection. She needs the world to notice her, to admire her, to clap for her every move. You'll see it in how she presents herself online. Provocative photos, cryptic captions, and a hunger for likes and comments that never seems to be satisfied. You'll see it in how she constantly brings up the attention she gets from other men. This guy wouldn't stop staring. My ex keeps texting me, or so many guys slid into my DMs today. She doesn't just want your attention, she wants everyone's. At first you might brush it off, maybe you even feel flattered that such an admired woman is interested in you, but with time the weight of her need for validation becomes a drain. You realize that no matter how present you are, no matter how much you give, it's never enough. Because she's not actually looking for connection. She's looking for applause. And when applause becomes the currency of her self-worth, loyalty becomes optional. This isn't just immaturity, it's a red flag of emotional instability and deep insecurity. A woman who constantly chases outside validation will never fully appreciate your presence. She might be with you, but she'll always be wondering what else is out there. Every compliment from another man becomes more exciting than the consistency of your devotion. Every social media reaction becomes a small dopamine hit she prioritizes over genuine emotional depth. And you, if you're not careful, you'll try harder, you'll text more, compliment more, show up more. You'll think, maybe if I just love her enough, she'll stop needing all that. But here's the truth, you can't outlove someone's addiction to attention. It's not about you, it never was. It's about the void inside her that no man can fill, not even you. From a Stoic perspective, this is where your discipline is tested. The Stoic man does not beg to be chosen, he does not compete for attention, he does not measure his worth against the noise of social media or the validation economy. He stands quietly in his value, knowing that his presence, his loyalty, and his integrity are enough not just for the right woman, but for himself. When faced with a woman who constantly seeks the gaze of the crowd, your role is not to compete with the crowd, it is to step back and ask, do I want to share my peace with someone who doesn't value it? Because the more energy you give to someone who's addicted to public recognition, the less you have for your mission, your growth, and your grounded future. You see, the woman who needs everyone's eyes on her will never see you clearly, and the man who tries to win her over will eventually lose sight of himself. So what's the move? Walk away. Not with bitterness, not with blame, just with clarity. You are not here to validate someone who refuses to validate themselves. You are not a backup plan or a temporary boost of confidence. You are the prize, and when you know that, you stop chasing people who treat you like an option. Let her chase attention, you chase purpose. She'll be in a cycle of craving, you'll be in a state of becoming, and one day, when the noise dies down and she looks for something real, she'll remember you, the man who didn't beg, who didn't break, who didn't bend to be chosen. Comment below. My value is quiet but undeniable. Number 3. The blame game. She never owns her mistakes and you pay the price. There's a particular kind of relationship that slowly erodes your peace, not through shouting or betrayal, but through the quiet, relentless erosion of accountability. You begin to notice that every conflict somehow becomes your fault. Every mistake she makes, every emotional outburst, every poor decision. There's always a reason why you caused it, or why the world forced her hand. You're constantly defending yourself, explaining yourself, and carrying guilt that was never yours to begin with. Welcome to the blame game. This is the woman who never apologizes, without an asterisk. If she lies, she says it's because you weren't paying attention. If she cheats, it's because she felt alone. If she lashes out, it's because you triggered her. Nothing is ever owned. Everything is deflected. And slowly, you start to feel like the crazy one. You start questioning your memory, your instincts, your worth. But this dynamic is more than unfair. It's dangerous. When a person refuses to take responsibility for their actions, they become emotionally untouchable. You can't grow with someone who refuses to look in the mirror. You can't build a future with someone who never thinks they're wrong. And most of all, you can't feel safe around someone who will twist reality to protect their ego, even at the cost of your sanity. From the Stoic perspective, the first principle is this: you control your actions, your emotions, and your boundaries, not hers. You are not responsible for managing her wounds, her traumas, or her inability to self-reflect. A Stoic man understands that suffering begins when you try to control what's not yours to control, and nothing is more out of your control than someone else's willingness to change. The tragedy is that many good men stay in these dynamics too long. Why? Because they think their loyalty will heal her. They believe if they just stay calm enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, she'll finally see the light. But she won't, because as long as you absorb her consequences, she has no reason to grow. So, what's the move? Stop arguing, stop proving, stop absorbing. Let her own her narrative, even if it's false. You don't need to defend your truth to someone who's invested in denying it. The moment you stop playing the role of the emotional punching bag, her game collapses. She'll be forced to either confront herself or find another host to blame. And here's the beauty of Stoic detachment. You don't need closure. You don't need an apology. You don't even need to explain your exit. You simply leave, not as an act of revenge, but as an act of self-respect. Because the man who values his peace doesn't beg to be understood. He simply walks where he's valued. He lets others keep their chaos and carries his clarity like armor. Let her tell the world her story. You write your own. With calm hands, a quiet mind, and a future built on accountability. Comment below, I release what's not mine to carry. Number 4. Emotional blackmail. When her tears become a weapon. Not all manipulation is loud. Sometimes the most effective control comes wrapped in silence, sadness, or guilt. You're not shouted at. You're not threatened. Instead, you're made to feel responsible for her emotions, her past, her insecurity, and even her irrational reactions. If you've ever heard, "If you loved me, you would," or watched her shut down emotionally the moment you draw a boundary, you've witnessed emotional blackmail in action. This tactic is subtle but brutal. It's not about disagreement or healthy vulnerability, it's about control. She uses disappointment, withdrawal, tears, or subtle shaming to push you into submission. When she doesn't get her way, she doesn't negotiate, she sulks. She doesn't communicate, she implies. And because you care, because you're wired to protect and support, you give in. You say yes when you should say no. You comfort her when you're the one hurting, and worst of all, you slowly begin to betray yourself in the name of keeping her happy. But let's be clear, there is a difference between empathy and surrender. There is a line between compassion and losing your self-respect. When a woman uses guilt to bend your will, it's not love, it's leverage. She doesn't want a partner, she wants control masked as intimacy. From the Stoic lens, your first duty is not to soothe every storm, but to remain still in its presence. A Stoic man does not panic at someone else's pain. He listens, he cares, but he doesn't compromise his values out of fear. When she says, "If you really loved me, you'd do this," he calmly replies, "Love doesn't require sacrifice of self." Why is this powerful? Because it shifts the dynamic. You're no longer reactive. You no longer rush to fix. Instead, you observe. You see her behavior not as truth, but as a test. And when she realizes she can't emotionally steer you like a puppet, something shifts. Either she steps up to meet you, or she leaves to find someone easier to manipulate. Either outcome, you win. Here's the truth few men want to accept. Being strong doesn't mean being cold. It means being clear. It means setting emotional boundaries, not with aggression, but with calm resolve. It means calling out manipulation without shaming the manipulator. I care about you, but I won't be controlled. It means standing your ground even when the ground shakes. So if you find yourself constantly walking on eggshells, always monitoring her mood, always wondering if today will be silent treatment or smiles, you're not in love. You're in a loop. And the only way out is not louder arguments, but deeper presence. A presence that says, You don't get to decide how I feel, I do. You will know you've matured when her silence no longer scares you, when her guilt no longer bends you, and when her tears no longer blind you from the truth. Comment below, my emotions are mine, I won't rent them out. Number 5. The illusion of freedom, when she lives for the moment but destroys the future. There's a kind of woman whose entire life is built on the thrill of the now. She's exciting, unpredictable, spontaneous. At first glance, she feels like fresh air. She's always ready for a last-minute trip, an impulsive purchase, a wild night out. She speaks about living in the moment like it's a spiritual practice. And for a time, it feels magnetic. You're pulled into her world of instant gratification and carefree energy. But slowly, that world begins to reveal its cracks. You notice that she spends more than she earns. Not occasionally, but habitually. She jumps from job to job, relationship to relationship, trend to trend, without ever anchoring to anything solid. She has no long-term vision, no financial awareness, no deeper plan for her life. Everything is about excitement today, not stability tomorrow. And if you bring up the future, savings, goals, growth, she calls you boring, too serious, or worse, controlling. The truth is, her obsession with the present isn't mindfulness, it's avoidance. She's not embracing life, she's escaping responsibility. And in doing so, she slowly turns from a partner into a liability. Because behind the Instagram perfect moments and dopamine-chasing adventures is a life built on sand. And the longer you stay, the more you'll find yourself becoming the anchor for someone who refuses to grow roots of their own. From a Stoic perspective, this kind of chaos is seductive but deadly. Stoicism teaches us that a meaningful life is not built in emotional sprints, but in daily, consistent alignment with purpose. A Stoic man doesn't reject joy, but he never sacrifices stability for temporary pleasure. He understands that true freedom comes not from doing whatever you want, whenever you want, but from mastering your impulses and choosing wisely. When you're with a woman who only values the present, you become the future she's running from. You become the voice of reason she wants to silence. And over time, you'll either join her in financial and emotional recklessness, or she'll resent you for not enabling it. So, what do? You observe. You detach emotionally from the highs and look at the structure. Is she building anything real? Or is she constantly tearing down and rebuilding her identity based on impulse? You ask, can I build a life with someone who doesn't believe in building? And if the answer is no, you don't argue. You don't try to convince her to change. You walk. Quietly, clearly, with compassion, but with boundaries. Because the cost of staying isn't just financial, it's spiritual. You'll spend years trying to carry both her dreams and her debts, until you realize you've abandoned your own mission in the process. The Stoic path is about sacrifice, but never of your principles. It's about generosity, but never to the point of self-destruction. If you're with someone who lives only for the high of now and refuses to look toward tomorrow, you're not her partner, you're her safety net. And no man can build a kingdom when he's constantly patching someone else's escape route. Choose presence, choose depth, but never choose chaos disguised as freedom. Comment below, my future deserves more than her temporary thrill. Number 6. The power struggle, when she competes with your masculinity instead of honoring it. One of the most exhausting dynamics a man can experience in a relationship is the unspoken tug-of-war over leadership, authority, and direction. It's not always loud, sometimes it's subtle. You make a decision and she questions it, not because it's wrong, but because you made it. You offer to lead, but she frames your initiative as control. You assert your standards, your purpose, your vision, and suddenly you're too rigid, too traditional, or trying to dominate. What you thought was a partnership starts to feel like a competition you never signed up for. And here's the deeper truth. It's not about you. It's about her unresolved relationship with power. Somewhere along the way, she learned that masculine strength is a threat, not a compliment. She sees your presence not as a foundation but as a force to challenge. She tests you not to grow closer but to reclaim control. Every time you step into your masculinity, your decisiveness, your focus, your calm dominance, she pushes back, not to build with you but to prove she doesn't need you. But the irony is, women like this do crave strength. They just want it on their terms. Safe, neutered and under their control. They're not seeking equality. They're seeking superiority in disguise. And a man who allows himself to be gradually softened, silenced, or shaped into her ideal loses not just her respect, but his own reflection. From the Stoic perspective, this is a test of sovereignty. A Stoic man does not shrink to avoid conflict. He does not dim his leadership to maintain peace. He does not apologize for his strength when it is grounded in virtue. He leads not to control, but because he's built to. He holds frame, not to dominate, but to protect structure. And when that presence is rejected, mocked, or challenged by someone who claims to love him, he doesn't argue, he evaluates. Ask yourself, does she admire your vision or resent it? Does she encourage your leadership or try to undermine it? When you draw boundaries, does she respect them or challenge you until you fold? Because the woman who can't receive your masculine energy will eventually try to convert it or crush it. And no matter how good the chemistry is, there is no peace in a relationship where your essence is treated like a problem to fix. So what's the move? Don't match her power plays. Don't raise your voice. Don't try to convince her you're not that controlling. That's exactly what she wants, to pull you out of your center. Instead, remain unmoved. Lead your life with strength and compassion, and let your consistency speak for itself. If she joins you in that rhythm, beautiful. If she fights it, let her fight herself. And, if necessary, walk away, not in anger but in clarity, because you're not just preserving your masculinity, you're protecting your mission. Your energy was never meant to be wasted in silent wars or endless competitions. It was meant to build, lead, protect, and evolve. A woman who's secure in herself won't challenge your strength. She'll celebrate it. She won't try to wear the crown you were born to carry. She'll stand beside you as a queen who knows her own power, doesn't need to cancel yours out. Comment below, I lead without permission and I love without fear. You began this video unaware of how deeply one relationship could sabotage your entire path, but now you've seen the truth. The red flags, the warning signs, and most importantly, your own power to walk away. She didn't destroy you, she revealed the parts of you that still needed boundaries. If you're ready to rise, not just from heartbreak, but into clarity, into strength, then like this video, subscribe and comment. I am unstoppable. Guard your peace, grow your power, and never forget the strongest men walk away before it's too late.